Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Harmony Nice and today I am going to be filming a mental health video. So today I kind of wanted to talk to you guys about something that is extremely important in my life in general and changing my reality and how I could use that to make videos and help you guys, as obviously it is a huge theme in my life in the minute. And one of the most beautiful things that I ever did for myself was removing any sort of substance abuse from my life, especially with the emphasis on alcohol and how becoming sober put such a great benefit towards my life. So I wanted to talk to you guys today about the reason that I went sober and my sobriety story, and then also give you guys some tips of what I found helpful in going sober. I would also just like to say that this is my complete personal experience and opinion on the matter, and I'm not a professional mental health advisor or anything like that. I'm not. This is just coming from my experience and what I've learned from my experience, nor am I absolutely shaming anybody for drinking. So I'm not here to judge you at all. I'm not here to kind of make any unfair criticisms on people that do drink. This is just my personal experience with drinking, how I dealt with sobriety when I became sober, and the changes of sobriety when I became sober. I'm also not here to convince you guys to go sober, but like only you truly know deep in your heart whether it feels like the right thing to do to go sober. But there's also nothing shameful about still after this video wanting to drink, because I do think it is a process as well, and I also do understand like people's perspectives on this subject. So I kind of wanted to start with my story to kind of give you guys a little bit of background on why I went sober, because I know I have spoken about this in previous videos, which I will link down below, but I don't really think I've ever told you the in-depth story of my history and my journey with sobriety and how I got to this place and why I decided to go sober. So I have drank from a young age. I always, for as long as I can remember, drinking was a theme in my life. In the UK and kind of I think most Western countries in general, drinking and binge drinking are very, very normalized. Like there's not many people that don't go out and get drunk a couple of times a week, even at my age. I mean, it was definitely a bigger theme when I was a teenager and kind of being a late teenager, when you are legal age to drink, which is 18 in the UK. It's definitely a bigger theme because you're all just kind of like, you're just like wanting to get fucked up all the time because it's like new and exciting and it's like something that you can do. A lot of people use that as a way to blow off steam, take themselves away from the reality of how their days are going and stuff like that, with their stressful jobs, everything like that. So I definitely think alcohol is a theme, or has been a theme, in my personal life and probably a lot of you guys' life, especially if you live in the UK. I mean, I can't speak for people in America and stuff, but as far as I know, in Western countries, it is the same sort of thing. So like I said, I started drinking when I was super young, and that was not like under my parents' supervision or anything like that. I think for a lot of people it doesn't seem like a massive deal because everybody that I knew around that time drank. Quite strange because my parents have never been big drinkers at all. I mean, I'm not somebody that has been one of those people who would like go home and like have a glass of wine and like do stuff like that. That's just not really been my thing. And the one thing that I've had from the times that I have gotten drunk or have like been drinking and stuff like that, it has never been a positive theme in my life. It never was something that really made me happy. It gave me like good memories, but really those good memories were always, looking back now, those good memories were always surrounded, tainted by embarrassment or by stupid things I'd said and I'd done. Because you are mind altering yourself. You are literally like poisoning. I mean, I don't mean to be like this preachy person. You are poisoning yourself, and that is why you have the effect of what alcohol does to you. And I got really, really depressed. As you guys know, I had depression from the ages of, like really severe depression from the ages of 13 to the age of 17. And when I was 17, I basically like had only a couple of friends really. They didn't really particularly drink, and I took a year off drinking, but that wasn't like intentional. I just genuinely didn't want to go out. I wanted to like focus on myself, and that's when I became interested in Wicca. A lot of focus and stuff was on that. So when I was recovering from that depression, I didn't really drink for a few years, but then when I was 18, I got back into drinking because I went through a really, really bad breakup. When I was with this person, I would go to see them and I would go and I would get really, really drunk with them. When I broke up with this person, I started to get drunk more frequently and go out with friends a lot. When I was 18, I started to drink properly again, and At the time, I didn't realise how awful it was, because looking back now, I definitely realised that that was like one of the biggest and scariest times for how drinking really started to take over. I'd probably say that I was getting drunk like every weekend, and then when I moved to Norwich for a short period of time, I moved there for like 3 months, I was drinking like 3 times a week. I'm not gonna go into depth about this, but something really, really traumatic happened when I was drinking one night, and I felt so scarred from it, but at the time, I didn't have the time to acknowledge what had happened to me. Then I carried on drinking, and I just kept drinking and drinking and drinking. And actually, the reason I kind of stopped drinking was because I moved out from Norwich and I moved back home. And I think that takes me to being like 19 at this point. I wasn't as bad as I was for that year. So that was kind of what it was like for me. I wasn't like overly toxic towards drinking, but I definitely was somebody that would go out and get drunk like once every 2 weeks, I would say. And because I've always been quite a spiritual person, I definitely noticed that when I would drink, it would affect the way that I feel spiritually. I didn't have the resources to be able to even think about that at that point. At that point, I'd had like 3 therapy sessions with an old therapist that I no longer went to. In my mind, I had overcome my depression. I think the problem with my recovery that happened when I was 17 is that I recovered in a lot of ways, but I also took on another toxic habit of that instead telling people how I felt, I would just kind of put it inside and be like, people don't want to hear about this, you need to be like overly positive all the time. When I moved into my old house in Norwich, which you guys, because I've moved to Norwich twice, well 3 times technically, but twice before, like by myself with somebody else, and I moved in with my ex-boyfriend, and we would get drunk quite a lot. It would highlight a lot of issues in our relationship and a lot of issues that I had with relationships at the time as well. My breakdown was firstly, like, drinking definitely made it worse.
Hello, so at this point I forgot that some of you may have not realised what I'm talking about here, because not all of you have followed me forever, but if you didn't know, I had a mental breakdown in 2018, and that is what I'm talking about with my mental breakdown, and that is the reason that I moved out of the house in 2018. I have a video about it on my channel if you want to search for it. But yeah, I just thought I'd mention that because I then mentioned my breakdown with no context. So that's the context, baby.
It was a lot of different issues that kind of contributed to this, but I don't think that alcohol like was highlighted at that point, because I was still in the mentality, I was like, everybody drinks alcohol. When I moved back home, I got a lot better. And I think you can kind of tell, it's weird that you can like look back and tell with my video. When I moved back home after I had my mental breakdown in 2018, I felt a lot better because I wasn't drinking, I was really taking care of myself, I was like connecting with my home. I felt pretty good about YouTube. I was making videos that I really, really genuinely enjoyed and wasn't putting like over pressure on myself or anything like that. And in my mind at that point, I decided that I wanted to be single because I hadn't been single for 5 years. The whole kind of reliance on men and relationships is a completely different story, and I might make a video about that. I'm gonna be free. I'm gonna like spend time with my friends and like be single and discover what I want to do. At first, you know, when you get single, you kind of want to go out with your friends and like get drunk and stuff like that. So that is what I did. I started to drink. First it started as just like a weekend thing again. As most of you guys know, I met somebody that I started to date and was not a positive experience in my life at all. And I started drinking more. I then started drinking like twice a week and then 3 times a week, and very quickly I was drinking every single day. And I have never been somebody that drinks every single day, but I was drinking every day to cover up the issues that were happening with myself at this time, because I was drinking to avoid the truth about how I was acting at that time. I was in a very confusing time, I was in a very confusing situation, and I just started to act like a prick, basically. I started to not be a very good friend to any of my friends. I was a shit YouTuber at that time. I can barely watch my videos from that time because I honestly couldn't do sit down videos like this, because if I sat and I thought for more than like 10 minutes, I would start to have a panic attack because I realized how fucked up things were getting because I was drinking so much. I wasn't practicing any of my spirituality, wasn't taking care of myself, I was barely eating, and when I was eating like instant food, like instant mac and cheese and like cereal. I was like getting nothing in there. I lost a bunch of weight. I didn't even realize that it was like an issue because I kind of felt like confident and I was like really happy with my body. And I don't think I kind of realized how selfish I had gotten, because when you have an unhealthy relationship with something like alcohol, it does kind of turn into like a selfish sort of thing, because all of the time you are trying to cover things up and not acknowledge things. So you're not acknowledging any damage that you were doing at that time. There was a morning where I went to go see my friend for breakfast and I got alcohol at breakfast and my friend was like, I don't think that you should be doing that. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, why? Like, I'm just having fun. Like, I just didn't even understand like how serious it had gotten. And I've only had like 2 times in my life that I have been so incredibly drunk that I can't remember absolutely anything. Like small little kind of snippets of things, and like I've been so drunk that I've had to be like helped home. One of the times was when I was 18, and then the other time was around March last year, and I went to this gig and I got so incredibly hammered, and it's so embarrassing to talk about now because I can't even imagine being like this. I was so wasted that my friend Megan had to put me into a taxi. That's where I met my best friend Cara as well, and she was so friendly, but I was so drunk. It was awful, and I just made an absolute like dick of myself. I lost so much stuff. I was so embarrassed. I hadn't eaten that day, and that's why I got so incredibly drunk. And then I suddenly realized that I was like, okay, I have a problem. Like, there is a problem going on here. This is an issue. After I broke up with this person, I had a really dark weekend where I went out and I got fucked up again. And then things kind of started to calm down a little bit. I still drank a little bit, not as much because I was trying to spend more time at home. And then the last time that I got drunk was actually a really fun time. I'm quite happy that I had that as the last time that I got drunk. It was a really nice night out with my friends Alfie, Guy and Joe, and we kind of went out and we had like loads of fun, and it was like one of those like wholesome drunk nights where like nothing fucks up, but it's just like really good and really fun. I met my current boyfriend I think around that sort of time where I was kind of getting stuff a bit more together and working stuff out in my head. He is a Buddhist and he also doesn't drink. He is completely teetotal. Very like in touch with himself, and he's very like conscious. That is something that I have always been in myself. When he kind of spoke to me about alcohol and said, this is why I don't drink, and we were discussing alcohol and everything like that, I decided that I just didn't want to drink anymore. At first was like, how about I just won't like go out and get drunk and stuff like that, and I didn't. There's some cats arguing outside the room. So I just decided that I wasn't going to go out and get drunk, which I didn't do, and I was just like kind of chilled about it. And then occasionally, like when I would go see friends and stuff, I'd have like the casual drink. As soon as I stopped drinking, I did start to kind of experience this kind of weird awakening a little bit more, where I started to realize a lot of stuff, and I started to be a lot less selfish, and I started to think about things a little bit more. I became a lot more self-aware. One incredible thing that I did notice that happened when I became sober is that I really felt way more spiritually connected to my path than I ever had done. I felt so awakened. I found meditation a lot easier. I found casting spells a lot easier. I found time for my craft a lot easier as well. I don't think this is just because it was me and because I did have a bit of a reliance on it and a bit of a problem with it, but it really did help. And I'd kind of got on a bit of a better spiritual track by that point. And I'd started to kind of process a lot of stuff that had happened to me. And then there was like this one weekend where I had a couple of beers, and then in the morning I felt so terrible. When I did that, it almost made me feel like how I did when I wasn't on that path, and I wasn't feeling better and I was still in a bad place. And that's kind of when I made the definitive decision to stop completely. So I've been sober for quite a while now. I don't know if it's coming up to a year or not. And when I started to be sober from like completely everything, and I kind of started to recognize how as people we use things as coping mechanisms, is when I really started to get onto this bettering my life journey. Reflecting on it now, alcohol has been probably one of the things that has caused 80% of my life issues. But when I started to kind of embark on this coming home to myself journey, when you aren't abusing like a substance or you aren't having an unhealthy coping mechanism, you suddenly start to come home and you start to remember beautiful things that you used to be into, because when they start drinking alcohol, that's like a very adult thing to do, that it does take like this like layer of innocence away from you. So you kind of do forget all like the beautiful little things that you used to be. So that's kind of how I came to being sober. I know that's like a really, really long-winded story, but that is kind of how I came to be somebody that decided sobriety was right for me. It has improved my relationships, it has improved my body, it has improved my mental health, it has improved the way that I see myself and the way that I do things and cope with things as well. It's really, really hard to go sober, which is why I wanted to kind of make some like tips for you, why it is hard to go sober, and also some tips that really helped me while going sober. But when you do give up substances and substance abuse in general, you are forced to look inside yourself a lot more, and that is another hard thing about going sober, because a lot of people keep walking down this kind of path where they feel like everything's very, very overwhelming, and then they like have a drink or something and it takes them away from that. It puts you in a position where you feel like your problems are a bit more manageable, and it brings down your anxiety because it like mellows everything out a little bit more, and then you find yourself digging this hole of which you aren't actually getting rid of any of your problems. You can be in your happy place for a while, so you are forced to look inside yourself, and that is a terrifying thing to do. It's something that is extremely hard to do, and we use things in our daily life to escape all the time, whether it's like sitting on our phone or whether it's having like a glass of wine. It can be very, very scary, and I think when people do that, they suddenly like freak out. Like I even sometimes now, when I get anxious, think, Jesus Christ, it would be nice to have a drink right now so I just no longer feel this like level of anxiety. But I guess it is kind of a shortcut in some ways, and it is kind of one of those things that does just instantly make you feel relaxed. So like some people are like, well, why can't I do it? And that's totally fine, but for a lot of people it does become a problem, and it does become an addiction, and also a way to bury their issues and not speak about their emotions and not be like vulnerable and open, which leads to greater problems. Also, I think it's really, really hard to go sober because you lose friends. I think when I became sober, I did lose a lot of friends. There was friends that I actually had to just like give up completely. Then like a lot of other issues come up. So like being sober isn't something that is easy, because you are forced to like look at yourself. So now I thought I would share some tips with you guys that I found super, super helpful while going sober. Also, these tips aren't for alcoholics. You may still get something out of this video for like a helpful tip. I would say I wasn't addicted to alcohol, but I was definitely reliant on alcohol to serve a negative purpose in my life. But I did give it up pretty easily and it worked well for me. But if you are somebody that is addicted to alcohol, totally watch this video and like get some tips from this, but understand that you may need bigger help and you may need to see somebody. So I'm going to leave some helplines down below and some websites and some resources and stuff that you can get some help from. These tips are more to help people that have decided they want to give up alcohol or are just interested in some interesting tips of how you can cope after deciding to stop drinking alcohol.
I also just want to make it clear, as I know that sometimes it can get kind of confused, but these tips are for people that want to go sober or have trouble staying sober for personal reasons and reliances on alcohol. If you're a person that has no reliance on alcohol or troubles with drinking alcohol and you just drink it, I don't know, for whatever reason, these may not apply to you, but these are for people that it will apply to, that may have a reliance or use it as a coping mechanism like I did, basically.
So the first tip that I have is, firstly, replace the alcohol with hobbies that blow off steam. So one of the most enlightening things that I had when I went sober was that I had so much spare time, which was absolutely amazing. Like I had my mornings back, I had my weekends back, I had loads and loads of spare time, and I also just didn't have this like weird thing messing my body up a lot of the time. With that spare time, I had a lot of times where I kind of was like wanting to have fun and go out and get drunk, and my weekends I was like, what am I even doing? Especially during this self-isolation time too. It's been really weird because I've been so freaking bored, and like I see everybody like having like drinking parties and things like that, and I'm like, what do I do? And I think the reason like a lot of people do drink alcohol is to blow off steam, especially binge drinking, is to kind of like go out and like dance and party and like really blow off steam, and that is totally fine, but there is other ways to blow off steam that are much more healthy and not a detriment to your mental health, basically. Ooh. So instead of doing absolutely nothing with your evenings, make a list of things that you wish to do with your evenings and your weekends. So arrange evenings for things that you will still feel like an emotional benefit from, because I think some people go out and they get drunk and they release all that energy and it does weirdly make them feel better for it. So I think something to do is arrange nights of things that will actually blow off steam still. So things that I recommend that are fun, that aren't exactly like things that you always have to be like a learning thing. Things like gaming, like when I play video games and stuff like that, that definitely blows off a lot of steam for me. Pamper nights are great. Meditation evenings, I find them fun, but I don't know whether you guys would. Movie evenings and stuff like that, because I think a lot of that is like things that we do when we're young and then we forget about because we are like getting older and stuff like that, and then you just end up like having a wine and watching like one thing of a series. But like having like a really fun movie night where you like go and get a bunch of snacks and like line up some movies or light some candles and have like a really cute lovely pampering night where you can like rub yourself in oils and like listen to some meditation music and watch like a film that you really like, or order yourself a takeaway or something, as they are like good ways to blow off steam, or like going like out for an evening walk or something, because you feel quite like elated and alive after that. But the longer I kind of didn't do the whole like evening drinking thing, and I must admit it was easier obviously because my boyfriend doesn't drink. The longer that I did that, the actual more things I found to do and the more passions that I had forgotten about that started to come back to me. I feel like it's kind of not surprising that when you stop drinking, you do suddenly feel connected to a lot of things that you had previously forgotten, and that is like a magical thing, and you suddenly find like a lot more stuff to do. So just organize things to do ahead of time with your evenings, and think of other relaxing methods and other like relaxing beverages to drink and sip on while you're doing these things, and arrange some things that help you relax instead, because again, I think some people use alcohol as a form of relaxation. There are so many like things that you can find to do to help yourself relax that doesn't involve alcohol, and once you're there and you're doing it, it no longer feels like it's like an effort, like it just feels like you are relaxed, which is like what it's supposed to be. So the second thing that I would recommend is committing to grounding routines. So when I first gave up alcohol, again, I felt like I was realizing a lot, and firstly that can kind of come with feeling physically weird, and then it can also come with feelings of shame, and it can also definitely come with anxiety, because a lot of the time we use alcohol as well to make us feel more like ourselves and get rid of that anxious barrier, and just kind of gives us a shortcut to being this like confident like person. There are so many common feelings like this that are all shared by people that are going sober, and all of them are legitimate. Like no matter what you are feeling when you were going sober, it is legitimate, and probably somebody else has felt the exact same way. The thing that I felt like was the most important thing that I learned is that drinking doesn't help you be you. It helps you take away filters that you have had. So in reality, the stuff, the insecurity and everything, and the upset and the hurt and the pain is still there, but that filter is just removed. So you're just exposing it a little. Yeah, in a way you are being you, but it doesn't mean that it's helping you actually find yourself or be the best version of yourself. It's just kind of removing the filters that can expose a lot of negativity. So it's important that when you give up alcohol, you keep yourself grounded. It is very, very important when you do become sober to carry on and sit through these emotions despite how hard it is. So you kind of have to even stick to it even when it becomes uncomfortable, which is probably one of the biggest challenges ever, because throughout my life, I've always been somebody that wants to escape from my problems. So with that, what I found extremely helpful, which I kind of practiced anyway, but when I became sober, it became so much more apparent how important that was to me, to have a grounding routine so you don't kind of float off with your anxiety, and it does make going sober like a lot less scary. I do think when you go sober, basically you do kind of end up changing your whole routine around anyway, because it does change a lot. But what I would recommend is kind of starting with a small easy routine, or small easy things to add to your day in order for you to keep yourself grounded and keep yourself on the right track. So what I would recommend doing is starting your day off with 1 or 2 grounding things, reconnecting with yourself halfway through the day, and then spending the evening doing something or planning something nice for yourself if you've got spare time, and then ending your day with something grounding, which I know sounds like quite a lot, but it actually isn't quite a lot depending on what you kind of choose to do. But it does really help keep yourself like in that positive mindset and keep yourself calm with all the mental changes and all these thoughts that will be coming to you. I personally start the day with things like journaling and meditation and exercise. Yoga also is a brilliant form of exercise, or like getting out for a walk. So I know that I have these kind of grounding techniques, but on my kind of everyday routine I will start with at least journaling and meditating, because they are 2 things that I feel like benefit me a lot. And then in the evening what I'll do is I will do either some like breathing meditation, or I'll do something else that helps ground me, like going for a walk or having a bath. Throughout the day, if I need to check in with myself, I will take some CBD. I will spend a few minutes just breathing, like literally 2 minutes. The cool thing about this is that you do work out what works best for you. You may kind of feel like they're like meditating or something like that isn't working for you, but there are so many grounding things that you can do. Once you kind of have an idea of how you like to start your day to be grounded and how you like to end your day to kind of feel a little bit more grounded, then if you do kind of fall off track, at least you've got those things to fall back on. And also if you're feeling low, just do one of these things. Just wake up and do a journaling session, or wake up and meditate for 5 minutes. They're not like huge tasks, so you've still done something for yourself that day. But then for your evenings and stuff, because evenings are sort of time that you like to have fun, as you may be finding that you yourself having more time and feel a lot bored, which may lead to you wanting to drink, to maybe look into going to a class. I know that's kind of hard to do right now, or planning evening things to do, like always wanted to do with your evenings, but obviously just through life and circumstances you've just never really been able to do. Maybe there's some books that you would like to read, some films that you would like to watch. Maybe you would like to implement more pampering into your routine. It always makes you feel like you are then treating yourself, and it makes you feel good because you're not damaging yourself, but you're also getting that kind of like nice grounding feeling, and also blowing off some steam and having fun and stuff. So plan some nice things for your evenings too. Something that really helped me when I was going sober was cooking, because I love food, but definitely when I was at my worst stage with alcohol, I really lost that kind of love for food. When I started taking more time cooking and started to look into like recipes, that was something that I could like focus on with my evenings. It's something that I did with my partner, and I could sit and I could have like an alcohol-free beer and like cook some food, and it was like a real treat, and it really felt like smelling the food and like taking a like more part in life, I guess, and enjoying it was just so rewarding to me. So my next tip is try not surrounding yourself in situations where you will have to drink or will feel pressured to drink. So this was a very hard thing for me to do. As you guys heard me mention, living in the UK, drinking is a very normalized thing. Most of my friends drink. And lots of my socializing when I was drinking was either drinking, like going out in the evenings and drinking, or I'd be going to a coffee shop, or we might go to a pub. And because I don't have many interests that I share with other people, like the majority of my interests are all very like introverted, so I really struggled to kind of think of what I could do with friends and like how I could have fun with friends. So when you become sober, you're suddenly shocked how many times you get invited out and you have to be like, no, sorry, like I don't drink, and then you may feel awkward about it, or that you may lose friends, or that you may meet up with friends you suddenly feel like you don't have as big a connection anymore, because that may have been something that you like bonded together over because it was like fun and exciting. You might find yourself trying to like adapt to them and try to like work towards what they want to talk about. So I recommend when you go sober to not go to places where you are going to feel like you have to drink. And I'm not saying don't go to places that serve alcohol and then your friend has a drink and you're like, oh my god, please don't drink in front of me and all, unless it's obviously a huge problem for you, in which case you may want to ask your friend not to drink alcohol in front of you. What I mean by that is like, don't go out on a night out on like a bender, because firstly, it's actually pretty good for like enlightening you on how people act to each other when they drink, because you're suddenly like, holy fuck, people are mean and weird. But secondly, also you may just automatically feel pressure to drink and end up getting drunk. You can just still get on a better path again if that does happen. But obviously it's sometimes like nice to go to a pub or something like that, and your friend or something may want to have a drink. And if you do suddenly weirdly feel like pressure to drink, if it's just one-on-one, explain to the person that you're with that you why you're not drinking, and then that's a conversation topic by itself. And then if they kind of don't get it and still want you to drink, just kind of explain to them again that it's just not something that you're comfortable with, and get an alcohol-free beer. And yes, if it's awkward, you may have to deal with this one awkward encounter, but try your hardest not to feel pressured. I know it's hard and I know it's difficult and it's not your fault. And also just telling people and being vulnerable with people about your emotions around this situation, and maybe telling them the story if you feel comfortable about why you decided to go sober, can also help them feel more like connected to you and more like vulnerable with their emotions surrounding the subject too. I usually always feel like if something's awkward, to just be completely honest, because then they're suddenly like, shit, I get it, rather than trying to be like, oh, I'm just like not drinking right now. You want to feel good about yourself. They want you, if they're true friends and they love you, they want you to feel good about yourself too. But if you've put a boundary up and they disrespect that, that is the natural process of becoming sober, and you may suddenly feel like disconnected to this person, or may not want to hang out with them, and you can experience a lot of pain from that. And if it makes you feel awkward, just ask to change the conversation and just move on to something else. Don't ever do anything or feel pressured to do anything that will put a detriment on your mental health ever, because I tell you now, it's not worth it, sweetie, just not worth it. No matter what you're doing, just remind yourself that what you're doing is a good thing that is going to benefit yourself. Maybe a weird thing to do and to adjust to at first, but try to find other things that you like to do with your friends. Think about other interests that you and your friends have in common, and maybe try to change the dynamic of the relationship a little bit more. If you have a drinking buddy but you get along really, really well and would like to do something else with them, think of something else to do. There's so many friendships I've got that have slowly progressed from us like being drinking partners to then just going out for coffee during the day and having more genuine conversations like that. So my next tip is, don't replace it with another coping mechanism. So something that I really struggled with when I gave up alcohol, and that really delayed my process of kind of recovering and becoming sober, is the reliance that I had with alcohol and what alcohol did for me. When I first went sober and I panicked, I suddenly went to other things to cope with what was going on. Like I said, when you become sober, you are faced with a lot of hard truths, and suddenly your brain does go into panic mode. Especially once you've been like off alcohol for a month, your brain may just go into absolute panic mode and start to be like, fuck, like things weren't good, are dealing with a lot. You may be dealing with like some identity crisis because you may be using alcohol to like fill that confidence. The worst thing that you can do is then go to something else and replace that coping mechanism with something else, because again, you are not working through the problem, and even though it's hard, you will work through the problem if you don't replace it with more coping mechanisms. But if you do replace it with more unhealthy coping mechanisms, you will just continue to freak out, cover it up, freak out, cover it up. They won't go away. It could be things from like drugs, it could be shopping, it could be binge eating, it could be sex, or whatever you kind of find yourself like craving to cover that pain up, you could be turning to. And that is a way to kind of help you gain a false sense of control over your life again, which isn't how it works. Food has always been something that is a big comfort to me, so I did start to overeat quite a lot. There was other things that I ended up getting a bit addicted to as well. I absolutely am like completely choose to no longer feed myself anything that is going to put off my growth or my healing or anything for any longer. I don't do anything, I don't drink, I'm like completely teetotal, and I don't even drink coffee anymore. And no longer do I have a problem with overeating either, which is great. The most beautiful thing that I had was time and energy. And I did start to connect to myself more and start to work through some of the awful things that happened, which then I do feel like have benefited me for the rest of my life. So suddenly it is possible to nurture all the lovely things that you once wanted to but may have forgotten about, or life got to you and then you just decided not to. Replace it with other healthy outlets that you can use instead of unhealthy outlets. So some things that I feel really helpful is like every time I feel really anxious, instead of picking up something I know is an unhealthy outlet like my phone, I will end up like picking up a book or something like that instead of picking up my journal and writing down how I feel. Going for long runs, going for walks, maybe taking a class, maybe doing some painting, or start a new project that you've always wanted to do, or do something. If you like music is a great way to blow off steam if you play like an instrument or something like that. If you have a spirituality, that is the perfect time to nurture and throw yourself into spirituality, because these are all great things that you could consider as coping mechanisms, but they're not, because they are growing mechanisms in a way, I guess, because they are helping you progress into a better person. They are not like just helping you cope, they are helping you work through. And any hobbies that you have that kind of remove you from like the hustle and bustle of the everyday life, like they are the things that you need to nurture now. So my last tip that I would recommend is rewarding yourself. Now, I don't mean this in the conventional way of like treat yourself, but instead what I mean is rewarding yourself in a more physical or spiritual way. A great thing to do is to keep track of your achievements. So I know I go on about this a lot, but journaling is so important to me personally, and I do feel like journaling is a great way in order to keep track of your success. The fact that you have decided that you would like to live a happy, more positive life that benefits yourself and other people is an extremely beautiful thing. It is not something that is shameful, and even though you will feel a lot of shame and you may feel like a lot of regret, that is completely natural and that's also okay, and you are recognizing that you'd like to be more self-aware, and that is brilliant. And that will benefit so many people, including yourself. So journaling really helped me. Basically every day I do this thing where I like word vomit onto my page for 3 pages and I just write whatever my brain is feeling. It's literally like a bunch of drabble. It will be like, I slept really shit. Random shit that I think about that goes through my head. I also use that to identify the fact that I had made some mistakes and things that I can help recover from that. And I also recognize that I needed to forgive myself for messing up. It's very important to check into yourself as well, because something throughout your life that you should do is have something that helps you check in with yourself. As you grow, it's important to keep checking in with yourself, because if you're always wanting to grow and checking in with yourself, chances are you'll never fall back into the same patterns that you had done in the past than if you didn't check in with yourself. It was just kind of to help me along in my journey and to kind of help me identify issues, organize myself a little bit more and organize my thoughts a little bit more. I always try to write things that I'm proud of in myself in my journal. I think that's extremely important to do when you are going sober, is to recognize your milestones. Even though there's things that you're going to need to learn from and need to change and adjust, it's important to be like, I am proud that I recognize that, because sometimes self-criticism can get so bad that it can lead to much worse things. Also, for other rewards, people obviously like to reward themselves at the weekend by drinking. That could be another reason why you decide to drink, which I totally completely understand. The ways that I kind of reward myself is if I usually try to eat like extremely like healthy during the week, just so it gives me more energy and I feel like I can power through work and everything like that. And at the weekend, I like to treat myself. I don't drink fizzy drinks during the week unless it's a special occasion, but I will treat myself to like an alcohol-free beer. I love beer, so alcohol-free beer is something that I really enjoy. And I like to treat myself to maybe a less healthy meal that's a bit more like indulgent, but still like home cooked, or sometimes I have a takeaway or something like that. Really good to kind of keep like a healthy diet as well, but also remember to treat yourself. Like, food can be a very healthy way to treat yourself if you do it correctly. It's a very beautiful thing to do as you're improving, because then you're recognizing how you're improving and how important it is to continue to improve as well. If you don't like how you acted in the past, it is a very positive thing, because it means that you are improving and that you are moving on from that. If you stay completely the same and have the same opinions as you did when you were forever, then that is the problem. Like, you need to be able to have a progression with that. But yes, thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Oh my god, this was a long video to film. It was so long. This is good though. Oh, I'm tired now. Yes, thank you guys so much for watching. I kind of hope you enjoyed this like weird casual format that I've got going on. Kind of just filming wherever I want at the minute, and it's quite nice, to be honest with you. Let me know if you have any questions about sobriety. Best place to ask me is down here. I may even do like a mental health Q&A where I talk about it a little bit more, so always feel free to leave me questions. Even if I don't answer, they might be included in the Q&A later on. So help each other in the comments in any way that you can. If you do have problems with alcohol, I once again tell you that I will put some help down below that can help you research more on reasons why to be sober, places you can get help for being sober, and everything like that. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in my next video.